I had no business still being there when his Uber pulled away. The driver's taillights dragged two red smears across the wet street, and I stood at his sister's doorway pretending to fix the strap of my backpack, pretending I hadn't already decided to stay the second she said, "You can come in if you want. He'll be late." Her brother, my roommate, was gone for a double shift. 12 hours. Midnight at the earliest. She had come over to drop off some documents for him and found me eating cereal straight from the box like a raccoon with tuition debt. She laughed, said she was already making tea, asked if I wanted one. That was 20 minutes ago. Now I was sitting in his living room with her, mid-40s, hair tied like she didn't expect company, sweatshirt that shouldn't have looked as good as it did. She had the kind of calm that makes other people explain themselves. I kept talking more than I meant to, and she kept listening like she was trying not to. "I always forget how quiet this place gets after he leaves," she said, handing me a mug. The quiet wasn't just quiet, it was padded, insulated, like every sound had been folded and stored. Even the refrigerator hummed under its breath. Outside, a wet street and nothing else. "You don't have to stay," she added, not looking at me when she said it, which made it sound less like dismissal and more like a dare. "I know," I said, and didn't move. She sat across from me, one leg tucked under the other like she owned space differently than women my age, without asking permission. Steam rose between us. I watched it so I wouldn't watch her. "What are you working on lately?" she asked. That question should have been harmless. It felt like a searchlight. I told her about my portfolio, the internship I didn't get, the stupid little jobs I was taking to stay afloat. I heard myself talk too much. She didn't interrupt once. Only once did she breathe like she almost would. When I finally stopped, she rested the rim of her mug to her lower lip but didn't drink. "You sound," she said slowly, "like you're trying not to say something else." I looked at her then. Really looked. The kind of eye contact you don't make with someone you plan to forget. She held it, just long enough to prove she could, then looked away first. "I'm not trying to say anything," I lied. She hummed, neither agreement nor doubt. "Just knowledge." The hum landed heavier than a whole sentence. A bead of tea slid down the outside of her cup over her thumb. She wiped it with her sleeve, absent-minded, but the gesture looked too gentle for accident. Like she touched things carefully when she didn't know what they might mean. "It's late," she murmured, though it wasn't late enough to justify anything. "If you want to go, you should go before rain gets worse." She didn't look toward the door when she said, "Go." She looked at me. I set my mug down. "I'm not in a rush." She inhaled, too slow, too restrained, like she swallowed the first response that wanted to come out. Her brother was gone. No one else was coming. The apartment felt smaller now, like walls inching in. Before either of us spoke again, before whatever was building had a chance to declare itself, my phone lit the table face up. A text. From him. Just 6 words. "Don't let her leave too soon." Her eyes flicked to the screen. And stayed there. I tilted the phone away before she could read the name, but she had already seen enough to understand it wasn't a stranger. "Something urgent?" she asked, voice level. Too level, like she just braced for something without moving a muscle. "No," I said, locking the screen. "Nothing urgent." She nodded once, small, polite, but the air shifted. She knew it was her brother. She knew he had written about her. The knowledge didn't alarm her, it made her still, like stillness was armor. She leaned back in the chair. "You two are close." "For 4 years now," I said. "He took me in when rent killed me. I owe him more than I can pay back." Her eyes lowered a fraction, not guilt, not pity, something quieter. "He told me you broke things off with someone." I huffed a laugh. "He talks too much. You used to be engaged, right?" "That feels like a word that belonged to someone else," I said. "We ended it a year ago. I wasn't what she wanted. She wanted somebody finished. I was still, under construction." She didn't smile, but something softened around her mouth. People want finished things because they're afraid of unpredictability. You speak from experience? She took a drink before answering. I was married for 16 years. Predictable to the bone. He liked knowing what version of me he'd wake up to. I thought that meant I was loved. She set the mug down and looked at nothing for a moment, jaw working once, like she bit back something sharper. We divorced 2 years ago, she finished. That was all she gave, not the reason, not the wound, just the fact, clean as a document. But the silence afterwards said the reason still lived under her ribs. I wanted to ask why. I didn't. Instead, I asked the wrong question on purpose. Is that why you keep your distance from people now? She exhaled a silent laugh, not amused, but caught. Distance, she said, is a skill. You learn it the same way you learn not to grab a hot pan twice. I looked at her hands. Strong, careful, ringless. You're not distant right now, I said quietly. Her eyes met mine too fast, like reflex, like she hadn't meant to. We are sitting in a room that doesn't belong to either of us, she said. That isn't closeness. It's geography. She meant, this isn't real. But her voice cracked on the word isn't. That crack was real. The risk hung there. I was her brother's closest friend, living under his roof. I was 26. She was twice divorced, mid-40s, careful, slow to let anyone see the edges of her. If anything started here, nothing would stay clean. I shifted on the couch without thinking, closer by inches, not enough to name. She noticed. Her breath hitched once, a betrayal of composure so small it could have been mistaken for nothing, except I heard it. The rain hit the window in a sudden burst. She didn't look away this time. Her fingers, on the arm of the chair, twitched once, like they almost reached across the space between us before discipline stopped them. She didn't pull back her hand. She just whispered, almost to herself, "Don't make this harder than it already is." But she didn't move away. She didn't end it. She stayed. The knock came almost soft enough to be ignored. But not quite. We froze. I wasn't sure which of us jumped first, her hand gripping the edge of the chair, mine tightening on the mug I hadn't meant to pick up. "It's just me," said his voice, echoing down the hall. "My roommate, the reason we weren't supposed to be here alone." Her body stiffened, tiny tremor in her shoulder. She didn't move toward the door. She didn't move away. She just stayed, like a flame daring the wind to blow. "Hey," I said, voice too casual, too forced. "I was just leaving." "No," she said, flat but not loud. Her eyes didn't meet mine, but the space between us shrank anyway. "Everything okay?" he asked, stepping in. He stopped just inside the doorway, unaware, or maybe suspicious, of the tension vibrating in the room. "Fine," I said. "Tea. Rain. That's all." He glanced at her, and maybe he noticed the subtle charge in the air, the way her hair had fallen forward just so, like she was hiding something she couldn't hide. He shrugged and went into the kitchen to grab a drink. Once the door clicked closed behind him, we both exhaled. I was too close. Too aware of her scent, faint jasmine mixed with something warmer, something forbidden. My hand brushed hers when I reached for the mug at the same time. It lingered. She didn't pull back. She just froze. "Maybe I should go," I muttered. Not entirely convinced I wanted to. "You could," she whispered. Her voice caught once on the word, betraying a hesitation she tried to hide. We both knew the rules. He was my roommate. She had a history I wasn't meant to touch. But some part of me, reckless and stupid, wanted more. I leaned forward, just enough to bridge the space between us. She leaned in, not quite a move, but enough that the tension became visible, almost touch, almost confession. Then the sound of his footsteps returning made us flinch apart. The air had shifted again. I cursed under my breath. "I can't, you don't have to say anything," she said. Eyes locked on mine, defiance mixed with caution. "Just, don't leave yet." The clock ticked loudly. I couldn't remember the last time silence felt so loud. Every drop of rain against the window, every creak of the apartment, felt magnified. I wanted to close the gap, to ignore everything and see where this could go. She wanted it too. I could see it in the micro-movements, the slight brush of her fingers against her mug, the way she hadn't pulled back when I reached for mine. But the room had rules, invisible but insistent. One wrong move, one glance too long, and the precarious balance would shatter. Her voice came again, soft, almost a dare. "We both know this is dangerous." "Yes," I said, barely above a whisper. "And that's what makes it impossible to stop thinking about." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but didn't. She just leaned back a fraction, letting the tension hold between us. The moment stretched. Our hearts raced. And then, a sudden ping from my phone. A text. Not from him this time. Her eyes flicked to the screen. So did mine. We didn't speak. But everything shifted with that one unread message. You said the apartment felt smaller than ever. Rain had stopped, but the street outside was slick, reflecting neon signs that threw fractured light across her face. She sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at the mug in her hands. Her jaw tightened. I could see the subtle tremor in her fingers, even in the dim light. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said finally, voice low, more to herself than me. "Doing what?" I asked, though I already knew. My chest throbbed. Every fiber of me wanted to reach out, to stop her from saying the things I was trying not to admit. She looked up, eyes dark and stormy, like she was both daring me and warning me. "You. Staying here. Talking like it doesn't matter that your roommate, my brother, trusts me." I swallowed hard, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. I didn't come here to what?" she interrupted, sharper than she intended. Her lip twitched, a nervous tick. "To ruin something that was never yours to ruin?" Her words hit me, but they also ignited something I couldn't hide. Desire, yes. But also a fear I'd never admit aloud, the fear that if I walked away now, I'd regret it forever. "I can't stop thinking about you," I blurted, the words tasting like fire on my tongue. "I know it's wrong. I know." She cut me off with a laugh, short and bitter. "Wrong? You mean impossible. Dangerous. A mistake waiting to happen." I stood, pacing, hands clenching, pacing faster than reason allowed. "Maybe. But it doesn't make it any less real. What I feel, what we feel, it isn't just some passing thought. It's—" Her eyes followed me, impossible to read. Then she leaned forward suddenly, hand brushing my arm as if by accident. Her touch was electric. I froze. The air between us felt charged enough to spark. I wanted to close the distance, but I also wanted to respect the invisible line we both knew existed. "You're reckless," she whispered, not meeting my eyes. "And I shouldn't be encouraging it." "I'm not reckless," I said, hard hammering. "I'm alive. I'm awake when I'm near you. And I can't go back to pretending I don't notice every little thing you do." She closed her eyes, fingers tightening on her mug. The silence stretched, unbearable, waited. I could see the war inside her, the pull between restraint and surrender, fear and desire. Then her eyes snapped open, and I saw it, the spark that terrified her, and me. Something raw, unpolished, and impossible to ignore. "You're too young," she said, voice trembling, though she tried to steady it. I can't." Her words faltered, stopped halfway. She reached out impulsively, hand hovering near mine, and then pulled back, her pulse betraying the calm she was trying to maintain. I moved closer, hesitant, every step a negotiation with reason and impulse. We were on the edge. Every second stretched, taut with the possibility of everything: confession, surrender, ruin, or salvation. And then, a sudden buzz from the front door. Not the knock. The lock turning. Someone was coming. We froze. The moment shattered, but not completely. Her breath hitched. My hand hovered near hers. Neither of us moved. And I knew, one step, one choice, and nothing could ever be the same. The door clicked open. Not just a casual return, deliberate, slow, and heavy with presence. Her brother stood there, briefcase in hand, face tired but alert. "I forgot my wallet," he said, voice normal, but his eyes didn't leave the space between us. Something in the tension made me step back, like gravity had changed. She stiffened, but I noticed her hand twitch again, like she wanted to reach for mine and decided against it. "You two, talking?" he asked, eyebrow raised slightly, casual, but not casual enough. Just tea," I muttered, trying to sound light. "Tea?" he repeated, stepping further in, glance flicking between her and me. There was a note of something I didn't want to see, suspicion. Before I could answer, he dropped his wallet on the counter and sighed. Then his eyes narrowed. "Wait, why does it feel like something's off?" I froze. Her lips parted slightly. She didn't look at me, she looked at him. "You never told me he'd be here," she said, voice low but sharp. "What?" he asked. I opened my mouth. Nothing. Her brother's gaze landed on my hands, then on her, then back on mine. Something clicked in the space between us, the realization that he knew something. Not what, exactly, but that something had happened. She swallowed, biting the inside of her cheek. "I didn't stop." She cut herself off, eyes flicking to me. "Don't." I could see her struggle. Her composure was cracking. I wanted to reach for her, but instinct held me back. The rules, the consequences, everything we'd been tiptoeing around, slammed against my chest like a tidal wave. Her brother frowned. "You two are hiding something." And just like that, what had been a delicate tension became a precarious precipice. I started, voice cracking. "We weren't. I mean," she reached for my arm, a quiet anchor, stopping me from saying more than I should. Her touch was trembling, almost pleading. "You have to trust me," she whispered. Not to me, but to herself, as much as to me. His eyes darted between us, his expression unreadable now. There was confusion, suspicion, something deeper, a dawning realization. "You're lying," he said finally. "Both of you." The words hit harder than I expected. I stepped back. She pulled her hand away, curling into herself slightly. "It's complicated," she said, voice low, almost a sigh. But the truth in her eyes didn't match the calm in her tone. I realized in that instant, the risk wasn't just our own hesitation anymore. The risk was exposure, betrayal, judgment. Everything we had been holding back, every suppressed look, every fleeting touch, could unravel in one heartbeat. Her hand brushed against mine again, almost unconsciously. I felt it, electric and dangerous. "I don't want to fight this," I whispered, barely audible. "Not with you." Her eyes softened, glinting in the fractured light from outside. "But we might have to," she said. And just as that hung between us, the weight of possibility, the knowledge that nothing would stay safe, his brother cleared his throat, signaling that the moment wasn't ours anymore. The apartment felt smaller than ever, the air heavier, and the tension had evolved into something raw and unavoidable. We weren't just on the edge before. We were teetering on a cliff. And one misstep could send everything crashing down. "You said," the room felt smaller than ever, the glow of the street lights bleeding through the blinds like spotlighted confessions. Her brother lingered in the kitchen, pretending to check his phone, but every snap of movement sent shivers down my spine. I turned to her, and for the first time, the pretense fell away. Everything we'd been tiptoeing around, the stolen glances, the almost touch, the tension coiled so tight it could snap, was raw, exposed. "I can't keep pretending," I said, voice low, shaking just enough to betray me. "I shouldn't even be here. I know that. But I can't leave without telling you." She didn't answer immediately. Her hands were wrapped around her mug like it could hold her together. Then, slowly, she set it down. Her eyes met mine, steady now, weighty. "I know," she whispered. "I've known longer than I wanted to admit." The honesty between us felt like a jolt, dangerous, liberating. She stepped closer, the faint scent of jasmine wrapping around me. I wanted to close the distance, to reach out, to erase the months of restraint and unspoken longing. You shouldn't, she said, but her lips twitched, betraying the tiniest crack in her armor. I know, I breathed. But I do. Her hand hovered near mine, hesitant. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears. The world outside the apartment, responsibility, guilt, reason, had collapsed into the soft click of her fingers inches from mine. You're reckless, she murmured, almost teasing, almost a warning. And you're impossible, I said. For a moment, we simply breathed together, suspended in the air between confession and action. Then, impossibly, she leaned forward, hand brushing mine, deliberate but delicate, like testing gravity. The contact sent a jolt up my arm, settling in my chest, twisting every logical thought into something messy, something human. I don't know what happens next, she whispered. I can't promise it'll be easy. I can't promise we won't stop, I said gently, pressing my hand over hers. We'll figure it out. Together. One step at a time. I want to be here. With you. If you'll let me. Her eyes glimmered, catching the light in a way that made my stomach turn. She exhaled slowly, a tremor passing through her, and then she rested her head against my shoulder, cautious, but real. For a heartbeat, the world outside vanished. The tension, the rules, the guilt, it all collapsed into a single undeniable truth. We couldn't erase the past, and we couldn't predict the future, but right here, right now, we had each other. Her lips brushed my collarbone, accidental or intentional, and I couldn't tell the difference, didn't care to. I'm scared, she admitted softly. But I want this. I want you. I want you too, I said, voice raw, trembling. We stayed like that for a long, quiet moment, trembling, laughing softly, hands entwined. Dangerous? Maybe. Reckless? Certainly. But alive. And though the apartment still held shadows, her brother in the other room, the unspoken consequences, for the first time, the distance between us didn't matter. We had chosen each other. At least, for now. The rain began again outside, tapping the windows in a quiet rhythm, as if the world itself was waiting to see what would come next. You said, the next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds in soft, golden slats, dust motes drifting lazily in the quiet. The apartment felt different, lighter somehow, as if our confessions from the night before had lifted the weight from the walls. She was in the kitchen, humming a tune I didn't recognize, making coffee like it was ordinary, like nothing extraordinary had happened. But I knew better. Everything had shifted. Morning, I said, leaning against the doorway, hands in my pockets. She glanced up, smiled, slow, deliberate, real. Morning. Sleep well? Better than I have in months, I admitted. We shared a silence that wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, tethered by something fragile but unbreakable, honesty. The unspoken fear that had lingered between us was still there, yes, but diminished, softened by choice. By acceptance. I'm glad you stayed, she said, voice quiet, almost a whisper over the percolating coffee. Even with him around, even with everything we shouldn't, I didn't stay because it was safe, I said. I stayed because I couldn't leave. Her lips twitched into a small, knowing smile. She reached out and brushed a stray strand of hair behind my ear. Neither could I, she admitted. We lingered like that, letting the early morning sun settle over us, letting each second stretch without urgency. The apartment wasn't ours, it never would be, but the space between us had changed. We claimed it anyway. And yet, reality waited. There would be awkward questions, silent judgments, the challenge of maintaining a balance between desire and responsibility. But for now, we had this, the beginning of something real, something human, messy and alive. I don't know what happens next, I said softly, voice catching. Neither do I, she said, eyes meeting mine steady. But we'll figure it out. Together. I smiled, tentative but sincere. Together, I repeated. There was laughter then, quiet, shared, carrying with it relief, hope, and the thrill of something forbidden that had finally been acknowledged. I reached for her hand, not in haste, not in recklessness, but with intention. She intertwined her fingers with mine, a small anchor against the uncertainty of the world outside. Outside, the city moved on, people rushing, cars honking, life continuing like nothing had changed. But in that little apartment, we had carved a pocket of our own truth, a quiet rebellion against the rules, the expectations, the past. And it was enough. I realized, as we sipped our coffee side by side, that life didn't need to be perfect to feel extraordinary. We didn't need guarantees. We just needed each other. Her head leaned against my shoulder for a moment, brief, but grounding. And I knew that, whatever storms came later, we had chosen this moment, each other, and that choice was enough to carry us forward. The world would keep spinning, the rain would come again, and reality would knock at the door. But for now, the story was ours. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?